this podcast, we break down the mysteries of learning English and help you navigate the journey from beginner to fluent speaker. I'm Sabrina, your host for today, and let me tell you, I'm really excited to dive into this topic. Learning English, or any language for that matter, is no small feat. If you're someone who's just starting or perhaps has been learning English for some time and feels a bit stuck, you're in the right place. Today we're going to talk about some of the most common mistakes English learners make, and more importantly, how to fix them. Before we dive in, I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Here we explore different aspects of English learning, from grammar to pronunciation, fluency tips to confidence building. So if you're looking to improve, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. One of the most common mistakes English learners make is over-translating. Now, when you're first learning a language, translation is natural. You hear a word and you think of the equivalent in your native language. That's okay for a start, but it becomes a problem when it's done too much. Imagine you're learning how to say, "How are you?" in English. You might start by thinking of how you would say it in your native language and then match each word one by one. But English, like all languages, has its unique expressions, tones, and ways of structuring sentences. If you keep translating every sentence in your head, you'll not only slow down your progress, but also miss out on understanding the nuances of English. Let's talk about why over-translating is problematic with an example. Say, in your native language, the phrase, "I am hungry," might translate directly as "me hungry" or something slightly different. If you over-translate, you might end up saying "me hungry" in English, which technically makes sense but sounds awkward to native speakers. Instead of translating, try to immerse yourself in the language. Start thinking in English as much as you can. Even if it's just a few simple words or phrases, make a conscious effort to think in English. Try narrating your day-to-day actions in English in your mind. For example, if you're making a cup of coffee, mentally describe the steps in English. Say, "I'm boiling water for my coffee. Now I'm pouring it over the grounds." This will help train your brain to process English naturally without the need to constantly translate. Another common pitfall for English learners is pronunciation. English pronunciation can be challenging because it's not always phonetic, meaning words aren't always pronounced the way they're spelled. Take, for example, the words through, though, and thought. They look similar, but they all sound different. I know it's confusing, and it's something that frustrates many learners. In fact, studies show that around 60% of English learners find pronunciation to be one of their biggest challenges. And that's understandable, because English has about 44 unique sounds, but only 26 letters to represent them. One of the most effective ways to improve pronunciation is by listening to native speakers as much as possible. I highly recommend immersing yourself in English audio. Listen to English podcasts, audiobooks, and music. You can even repeat what you hear. Pick a sentence or phrase from a podcast or video and try to mimic the speaker's tone, pitch, and pronunciation. This practice is often called shadowing, and it's incredibly effective. Another great way to work on pronunciation is to focus on one sound at a time. For example, if you struggle with the "th" sound in think or through, spend a few minutes each day just practicing that sound. Hold your tongue between your teeth slightly and blow out a soft "th" sound. Practice until it feels natural. And don't be afraid to exaggerate it a little at first. Over time, these sounds will start to feel more natural. Another common issue among English learners is a limited vocabulary. It's easy to rely on basic words you're comfortable with, like good, bad, nice, big, small, and so on. While these words are useful, they can make your English sound repetitive if they're overused. And if you're trying to hold a more advanced conversation, basic words might limit your ability to express yourself. Let's consider an example. Say you want to describe an experience that was really good. You could just say, "It was a good experience," but imagine if you had the word fantastic or incredible in your vocabulary. You could then say, "It was an incredible experience." which sounds much more descriptive and engaging. To expand your vocabulary, focus on learning synonyms for the basic words you already know. Instead of always saying good, practice with words like great, excellent, or wonderful. You can even set a goal to learn one new synonym each day and use it in a sentence. Write it down, say it out loud, and find ways to incorporate it into your daily conversations. Another great way to build your vocabulary is by reading. Reading exposes you to a wide variety of words in different contexts. Start with simple English articles, blogs, or short stories. And when you come across a new word, look it up, understand it, and try to use it in your next conversation. Learning grammar is important, but sometimes learners get so caught up in following rules that they feel paralyzed when it's time to actually speak. This is what we call grammar anxiety. You're so focused on whether your sentence structure is correct that you hesitate, and by the time you think you've got it right, the conversation has moved on. Research shows that nearly 40% of language learners feel hesitant to speak because they worry about making grammatical mistakes. And while it's great to want to be correct, communication is the main goal. Here's the key: focus on communicating ideas first and worry about grammar later. Native speakers make grammar mistakes too, but that doesn't stop them from communicating. To help yourself, practice speaking in real conversations. Join language exchange groups or find a speaking partner online. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're getting your point across. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll feel, and over time, you'll naturally start using correct grammar without overthinking it. Another technique is to focus on learning grammar in chunks. For example, instead of memorizing every rule about the past tense, learn common past tense phrases like I went, I saw, or I did. These chunks will help you speak more naturally, and over time, you'll develop a feel for grammar without needing to pause and think about every rule. Listening is another area where many English learners struggle. And it makes sense because spoken English, especially with native speakers, can be fast. And sometimes words blend together. For example, native speakers might say gonna instead of going to, or wanna instead of want to. For new learners, these changes can make it hard to understand, even if they know the words. The best way to improve listening skills is through exposure. Try watching English videos with subtitles to start, and then gradually wean off the subtitles. Podcasts, news programs, and movies are all great resources. Another tip is to replay short audio clips multiple times, focusing on understanding each word. Eventually, your brain will start to pick up on common patterns and phrases, making it easier to understand. That wraps up today's episode on common mistakes English learners make and how to fix them. I hope this episode has been helpful and given you some practical tools to improve your English. Remember, it's all about practice, patience, and consistency. Every mistake is a learning opportunity, so don't be afraid to make them.
Sir, this sentence confuses me. Had I known, I would have helped.
It's a third conditional.
Third conditional.
Yes, for past situations that didn't happen.
So the person didn't know.
Correct. They regret it now.
Oh, so it's like saying, if I had known, I would have helped.
Exactly, but this is a more formal way.
Why change the word order?
To sound more natural and sometimes more formal.
How can I say, had I studied, I would have passed?
Yes, that means you didn't study and failed.
What if I say, had she called me, I would have answered?
That means she didn't call and you didn't answer.
I see. What about negatives?
Just add not. Like, had I not been late, I wouldn't have missed the bus.
Oh, so had he not helped me, I would have failed.
Yes, that means he did help and you passed.
This feels complicated.
It gets easier with practice.
Can I use it in daily conversation?
Not often. It's more common in writing or formal speech.
So if I say, had I woken up early, I wouldn't have missed school. It's correct.
Perfect. Now you're getting it.
But sir, why not just say, if I had known, I would have helped?
You can, both are correct, but had I known sounds more formal and elegant.
So it's just for style.
Mostly. Yes, it's common in literature, speeches, and formal writing.
Do native speakers use it in daily conversation?
Rarely, but you might hear it in serious discussions or professional settings.
What about songs or movies?
Sometimes, especially in dramatic scenes.
Oh, so it gives a serious tone.
Exactly. It sounds thoughtful, even poetic.
What if I want to ask a question?
You'd say, "Had you known, would you have helped?"
Oh, and if I want to add why?
Why had you not told me? But that's quite formal.
So normally, I'd just say, why didn't you tell me?
Yes, that sounds more natural in conversation.
Okay, can I mix it with other tenses?
No, it only works for past regrets.
What if I say, had I known, I will help?
That's incorrect. Had I known, I would have helped is the right form.
Because it's about the past, right?
Exactly. Future situations use different conditionals.
So if I want to talk about the future, I should say, if I know, I will help.
Yes, that's a first conditional for real possibilities.
This is tricky.
It takes practice, but you're improving.
Can I try one more?
Of course.
Had I practiced more, I would have played better.
Perfect. That means you didn't practice enough.
I think I get it now.
Great. Keep using it and it'll feel natural.